Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right, folks. Yeah, the SEC and the Big Ten are at a total impasse right now. All about the college football playoff moving forward. And I'm going to tell you the real truth. And this has gotten very contentious. It looked like the Big Ten and the SEC had done this, and this was several months ago when Petiti and Sankey met, and they had come up with sort of a plan to take over the college football playoff. They went ahead and divvied up the money, a lot more for the Big Ten and the SEC and a lot less for the ACC and Big 12, which didn't go over so well with the other conferences, but they didn't have any choice.
I'm going to make them an offer he can't refuse.
Yeah, they were given an offer they couldn't refuse. I think Sankey and Petiti put a horse head in their bed. It was a little rough. But it looked like they were all together. But Tony Petiti, who's actually a really smart dude, he had Sankey convinced that the way they needed to do this was the 4-4-2-2-1 playoff system, moving to 16 teams. Right now we're obviously at 12, and will be this year as well. But moving to 16 with 4 automatics for the Big Ten, 4 for the SEC, and then 2 ACC, 2 Big 12, and on down the line. And part of that deal meant the SEC, to make Big Ten happy, would have to move to a 9-game conference schedule, which Greg Sankey at the time was in favor of. Well, he talked to the coaches, and they straightened him out real quick. That you don't actually play those games, Sankey. We do as coaches, and you don't know what the crap you're talking about. Moving from 8 to 9 is going to get a bunch of us fired, which it probably would. And they finally explained to him how strength of schedule really works, and he was like, ah, crap. So now he's backed off of that. So now we've got the dilemma. And there's a bunch of articles in here. Brandon Marcello has a good one here. College football format goes back to the drawing board. And it does look like the SEC is going to keep an 8-game schedule. Now they're in meetings right now, closed-door meetings at Biltmore in North Carolina. I guess the Motel 6 was all full, so they wound up having to stay at the Biltmore. Not that they're wasting money or anything. Now, Greg Sankey has brought in a bunch of metrics to explain strength of schedule and do all of that, so they want to change the format to make strength of schedule more important, which that obviously favors the SEC. I don't know if the Big Ten's going to go along with that. Now, they did make the change where they're not allowing the conference champions to have automatic seeds and a bye. It's actually going to be done this year, basically 1 to 12. Now, if you win your conference, you will get in, but you're not guaranteed a number 1 through 4 seed, which really screwed over a couple teams last year. Tennessee wound up having to play on the road instead of at home. Alabama got kicked out, and another team got lost a bye. I mean, it messed everything up because it was communism. You know, oh, you win a conference, we're going to pretend that you had a great year even though you really didn't. So that has been changed. The big deal is going to the 16. And this is an interesting line in here. It says they are obligated to come to an agreement on what the format is, so they'll determine that between the parties. The deadline's December 1st, and there is no temporary 1-year format. This is a 6-year deal. I don't know that I like making a decision for 6 years. Why don't they do a 2 or 3-year deal? And we'll talk about whether it's going to be the 5 and 11 or the 4-4-2-2-1 deal. But I would not do a 6-year. We don't have enough information, and whatever deal we cut, either the Big Ten's not going to be happy, SEC's not going to be happy, Big 12 and ACC might be really unhappy. So why would you agree to a 6-year deal? That's just dumb. Do a 2 or 3 year like they did the last time. And the other weird part of this is it is possible if we come to an impasse that we stick with the 12 team, which shocks me. I was all in on the 16. I thought it had been determined. It was a done deal. It's just a matter of what format you use. But it's possible we stick with the 12-year for like 1 year. It's not out of the question. We might even go to that stupid 14-team deal, which totally ticks off the other conferences. That's where you would have had an automatic bye for the SEC and Big Ten champion and then 12 teams after that. That's really bullying is all that is. It's like we're the big dog daddy and you're nothing. You know, our 2 conference champions are big, and I just don't see that sitting well with folks. But it says here, it says pretty much everything's on the table, and they're taking a good look at all of it. Said I wouldn't say there's a leading contender right now for them, and they're taking a good look and a fresh look at it, that's odd. And it talks about the strength of schedule metrics that the SEC wants changed. The Big Ten is on the fence on that. I think they're on the fence on everything. And these are your two formats right here. The 5 plus 11, which are your 5 conference champions plus 11 at large, or the 4-4-2-2-1 plus 3. And the Big Ten wants this. This is what they thought the SEC was in favor of as well, but the SEC is on the fence now. And the Big 12 ACC hate this. And again, it's perfectly understandable why they would hate it. If you agree that you only get 2 automatics in a playoff, Big 12 or ACC, and the other conferences get 4, you've not permanently, but you have basically agreed you are second tier. And I wouldn't want to, they're better off in their mind with 5 plus 11, even though they'll probably get less teams in over time. But at least they feel like they're on the same playing field with the SEC and Big Ten. Whereas if you do the 4-4-2-2-1, you're basically admitting you're the little brother. That's who you are. And once you admit that, that's going to be hard on that's hard on your. I completely understand them hating that. I really do. The more I thought about that, because I was like, God, they ought to be happy to get 2. You know, there's been times they couldn't even get anybody in the playoff. But as a competitor myself, I don't want to agree that I'm half as good. That's just, the mindset of that is awful. And the coaches hate it. So this is probably what everybody's going to wind up with when it's all said and done. But the Big Ten won't agree to it unless the SEC moves to 9 games. But everybody else wants the 5 plus 11, which puts a ton of pressure on Petiti. And he's actually not at this meeting. He had hip surgery. And I'm sure he's not happy with how these meetings have been going after he thought he had a deal. But now we're going to get into this strength of schedule argument. And this is going to upset some people. When I show you truth, strength of schedule, if you're a Big Ten person, Big 12 ACC, look, I try to be fair. I really do. But when I show you this, it's going to probably upset you. And I don't, humongous, tell them.
Just walk away.
Yeah, if you're somebody that's easily upset by numbers, stats, and figures, especially if they don't fall in the category the way you want them to, this is not for you because, you know, I've been very real about the fact the Big Ten has improved dramatically. The SEC was dominant for so long with Georgia, Alabama. God, Georgia and Alabama, just, they had their run, man. But the Big Ten with NIL and now revenue sharing, they're in the ballgame. The top of the Big Ten has gotten really, really good. They're equivalent to the top of the SEC now, which is, I'm surprised I'm saying that, but it's true. The problem is the bottom half of the Big Ten does not equal the bottom half of the SEC. And that's an argument that the SEC is trying to explain to the Big Ten before they move to any 9-game schedule, and it's falling on deaf ears. They don't want to hear it. And the Big 12 and the ACC, they don't give a crap. They kind of know it's true, but they're in a tough situation. You know, they don't want to hear that either. But now I'm going to show you the real stats. And this is going to hurt you if you're not an SEC person. And I'm really trying to be fair. But when you see this, I mean, it is what it is, folks. This is on team rankings, and it's the NCAA college football strength of schedule rankings and ratings, okay? I didn't use ESPN because I know that makes Big Ten mad because ESPN owns the TV rights to the SEC. And they think ESPN tanks for the SEC. So does the ACC, who also, their TV rights are owned by ESPN, but they feel like the SEC's little brother because ESPN does kind of favor the SEC over them, and it irritates them. So I used a different ranking system here that I think should be, you know, acceptable. I know how the comment section is, folks, so I try to get ahead of everything. So what I did was I looked at the first 12 games, which is the entire season, not including the playoff, the full regular season for everybody. That's the SEC, Big Ten, and all that. And it's ranked here. Okay, so it's 12 games, 2024 regular season. Here are your top strength of schedule teams who had the toughest schedule. And remember, the ACC and SEC have 8-game conference schedules. Big Ten and Big 12 have 9-game conference schedules. So you would expect Big 12 and the Big Ten to have tougher strength of schedule because they're playing 9, correct? Remember, it's not fair that the SEC and ACC have 8. They should go to 9 because The Big Ten and the Big 12 have tougher schedules because of that. And the SEC should have to move to that. So let's see if these stats back that up. All right. Strength of schedule, number 1 rating, Georgia. Number 2, Alabama. Number 3, Oklahoma. Number 4, Florida. Number 5, South Carolina, LSU, Mississippi. All right, so we've gone 7 deep, all SEC. Every freaking team in the top 7 is SEC strength of schedule, toughest schedules. Then we get down to Ohio State. They are number 8. Number 9, Texas. Number 10, Texas A&M. Number 11, Tennessee. So of the first, Kentucky, number 12. The first 12, 11 are SEC with an 8-game schedule. Can you see where Sankey's coming from on this and the SEC and the coaches when they go, why would we go to 9 when we've already got the toughest schedules by far?
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
The Big Ten's only had 1 in the top 12, and it's number 8. Finally, when we get to 13th, we get Louisville, which is an ACC team. Then we get another Big Ten team at Michigan at number 14, and they lost 5 games last year. Isn't that funny? When they had Connor Stallions, they lost 3 games in 3 years. But the first year they don't have Connor Stallions, they lose 5. I wonder if Connor made a difference. I can't decide. I'm sure it had nothing to do with sign stealing. All right, then 15, USC, who is now Big Ten. Then Vanderbilt, Arkansas, UCLA, Notre Dame. Is there any Big 12 teams even in the top 20? Penn State? No. So we don't have a single Big 12 team. Here's Kansas, number 21. Here we go. Then Missouri. It's all SEC pretty much, all the way down. And then you get into some ACC, Big 12, and some Big 10. Let's see where Indiana wound up. They had to play 9 Big 10 games, right? So they should have a very tough schedule. They went 11-1, which means they got to be terrific. And look, Indiana was good last year. I'm not sitting here ripping on them. But if they went 11-1 and had a 9-game Big 10 conference schedule, you would think, gosh, they must be something. Well, it's a little bit easy to do when you're 42nd in strength of schedule. 42nd. And by the way, at one point in the season, their strength of schedule was 102nd. And then you look at some other teams in here. Let's see. Here's Purdue. They're Big Ten. They were 69th. North Carolina was 68th. Just Wake Forest, 64, ACC, on down the line. So after seeing that, honestly, if the SEC moves to a 9-game conference schedule, they're idiots. They're absolute morons. They've already got the toughest schedules by far, according to team rankings. They're not some SEC-biased stat, and ESPN's just as bad as far as showing the stats. It's not even close. So it would be nuts for the SEC to move to 9 games. And that's what the coaches tried to explain to Sankey, and then they put it in his face, and he was like, oh, crap, you're right. They just put the reality right up there in front of his nose. So now he's backed off that completely, which Petiti is furious. He thought he had a deal. He and Greg Sankey were like this, and then boom, he does a 180 and decides to side with the other 2 conferences. Petiti's got to be ticked.
Hallelujah! Holy shit! Where's the Tylenol?
And I got to give Petiti a lot of credit. He is one smart dude. He got a fantastic TV rights deal for the Big Ten, and that's why the Big Ten is catching up so quickly. Not only the TV rights deal, but they've gotten into NIL heavy. And as you can see right here, there's Oregon spending $23 million last year. Notre Dame, who I consider them almost part of the Big Ten, even though they have to be special. They won't join any conference. Here's Ohio State spending $20 million. Michigan spent a bunch. They've gotten on board with the NIL. Even Indiana, one of the reasons they were good last year, they got in the game. So while I think the Big Ten's going to continue to catch up to the SEC, they're not there yet as far as an entire conference. Now, their top end is really good. I'm not going to sit there and question that at all, but their bottom half is not. It does not equal the SEC, and that strength of schedule metric there, it is what it is. Look, if that showed the Big Ten like that, I'd be like, SC, you got to go to 9 games. I'd be the first to say it and admit it. But looking at that strength of schedule, folks, even if you're not an SEC person and you see Georgia, Alabama, Oklahoma, Florida, all down the line, and you don't see one Big Ten team until number 8, and you don't see a dadgum ACC school until 13th, And I don't see any Big 12 teams down through here. Where is a Big 12 team? Do you get down here to 21st or whatever, and that's it? And then 25th? I mean, that's, God. You have no choice if you're SEC. You got to stick with 8. And if you're the Big 10, ACC, or Big 12, and you're pushing the SEC to go to 9 games, how can you look at those numbers and say that? So, again, I'm trying to be fair, but I'm not going to sit there and look at this and go, oh, well, you know, we really should move to 9 games. No, it would be stupid. It would. And if I'm the Big 10, I probably go along with the 5+11. And because otherwise, it's going to be you versus the world. And you don't really want to be that. And you don't want to stick with the 12 team because that's going to creak a bunch of teams out of getting in the playoff. Unless you're just doing it to piss off the SEC. That would be the only reason you'd stick with 12, is just to stick it to the other conferences, all 3 of them. And I don't see Petiti doing that. He's too much of a get-along type of guy, and he's too smart for that. And again, just do like 2 years, go to the 5+11, see how that goes, and then move forward after that. Do not do a 6-year. That's crazy. Do not do a 6-year. Then you're stuck with it, and if it doesn't work and the Big 10 is all ticked, they're going to be mad for 6 years. I don't want Big 10 mad for that period of time, or SEC or anybody else. So anyway, that's where we're at. That's the reality, and that's why the SEC refuses to go to 9, and they're not going to. Now that I've seen that, I mean, I hadn't really looked at it, which is a little embarrassing. I should have. There's just no way to move to 9. There's not. So anyway, if you like this content, even if you don't, be sure to hit that like button. Lets me know to continue to cover all these big college sports stories. If you've not subscribed, boom, 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 hit that little button right there. Will not cost you a dime. Help you get my videos. And right over here's the most recent video. YouTube, thanks, you'll enjoy. We'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay. It's hard being fair.
Be left in the city under my supervision.
I am altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.